Well, the words of today's text may have reminded you of the admonition in 1 Corinthians 6:18, where Paul wrote, "Flee from sexual immorality." Or perhaps the words in 2 Timothy 2:22, where he wrote to Timothy, "Flee from youthful desires." In today's text, a father is counseling his son and encouraging him to stay away from sexual immorality. In Proverbs chapter 7, the counsel is strengthened by means of an experience. The king describes a scene that he personally witnessed, and we read about it in Proverbs chapter 7, beginning in verse 6. So why don't we turn there together? In Proverbs chapter 7 and verse 6, and you can imagine a father encouraging his son, and he relates this experience. "From the window of my house, through my lattice, I looked down, and as I observed the naive ones," or as the footnote says, the inexperienced ones, "like you, son, the inexperienced ones, I discerned among the youths a young man lacking good sense, or in want of heart." Now, that's the first strike against the young man, isn't it? He's young, and as a result, he's inexperienced. The two go together. But the father proceeds to describe what he observed and the progression of events that led to a tragic outcome for the young man. So it says in verse 8, "The young man passed along the street near her corner." Now, the her is a prostitute. What is he doing in the neighborhood? Well, we're told that he marched in the direction of her house. Now, the word march implies a sense of confidence, doesn't it? Isn't it interesting that a young person is often confident, even in risky situations? Why? Because a young person lacks experience and can't always foresee the implications of a situation or the outcome. Another factor is highlighted in verse 9. "In the twilight, in the evening, at the approach of night and darkness." So now we have inexperience, we have bad neighborhood, we have a young man who is confident, who evidently has no intention of committing immorality, may even feel that he's in control of the circumstances, and it's nighttime. Now, I know as a young man, where I grew up, everybody knew there were certain places or parts of town where you didn't go after dark because it was a recipe for disaster. In verse 10, the inevitable happens. The young man is confronted by a prostitute. And rather than turning around and leaving the situation, he engages with her in conversation. And in verse 22, we read the result, the culmination of this progression of ingredients. "Suddenly, he goes after her like a bull to the slaughter, like a fool to be punished in the stocks." Now, what do we learn from this word "suddenly"? Well, simply this, that in any situation, we can cross a line where we no longer control the circumstances. Rather, the circumstances control us. And isn't that what happened to the young man? He put himself in a situation going down a path that eventuated or culminated in his committing sexual immorality. And the seriousness of the matter is highlighted in the B portion of verse 23, where it says it will cost him his life. So there's a ripple effect. Certainly his relationship with Jehovah was damaged. His relationship with his family would be affected. And there are even physical factors, illnesses that can result from sexual immorality. Now, note in verse 26, the father says, "She has caused many to fall down slain, and those she has killed are numerous." And as our Watchtower recently made the point, thousands are disfellowshipped every year from Jehovah's family because of sexual immorality. Now, a question that Brother Kittle addressed, is it only the inexperienced that fall victim to this sad progression? Well, let's look at an illustration that appeared in the Watchtower article. You'll probably remember this illustration. And here we see two married couples having supper together, a seeming innocent situation. But what are the two folks sitting closest to the camera doing? They're flirting, aren't they? You see the sister, she's twirling her hair and her finger, and the brother is saying, in essence, "I only have eyes for you." And you can see wedding rings on all four of those individuals' hands. It's a start down a slippery slope, isn't it? And as portrayed in the Watchtower, this couple would later accidentally, on purpose, bump into each other in the parking lot of the Kingdom Hall after an evening meeting, engage in conversation, and that progressed to texting. Now, the good news is, as depicted in the Watchtower, these folks realized that they were headed down a dangerous path and took steps to correct it. But wouldn't it have been better if they hadn't gone down the road to begin with? It's a good reminder for all of us, whatever our age or circumstance. Here at Bethel, we interact with ones of the opposite sex, and many of us are married, many are not. But as we were reminded, we want to make sure our conduct is chaste and pleasing to Jehovah. Same holds true at the Kingdom Hall, and in our use of the internet, and in our choice of entertainment. See, we don't want to start down a path that could take us away from Jehovah. I'll never forget a pioneer sister who used to counsel us young people in the congregation, and we loved her. But she had an expression that she would tell us: if you're not going to burn down the barn, don't strike the match. Now, what's the point of her statement? Why start the progression of events that we know will lead to sadness and tragedy? So we don't even go there. And even if we're inexperienced, we can act wisely. What did the psalmist say? He said, can a young man keep his path clean? By keeping on guard according to Jehovah's word. So Jehovah's given us everything we need to remain clean. So talk to Jehovah about it. Be alert to identify and determined to avoid dangerous situations. And then we don't have to experience the sad outcome of the young man described in Proverbs chapter 7. Instead, we can succeed in fleeing from sexual immorality.